Hello everyone, this is White One Auto checking back in again today with a 2016 Lincoln MKX. This is an all-wheel drive model, it's your SUV, and the problem with it is it has a noisy rear differential. We're not gonna go over the diagnosis of that, but we will give you some tips in the removal. So first thing, the differential sits right here. This whole assembly here is our differential. So we've got to get this thing out, and it's pretty much straightforward. You get your exhaust down there, then you loosen your propeller shaft, your drive shaft. We have marked it so we can go back in the same location. And then we have to get our axles out, our half shafts or axles, whichever you would like to call them. And the way we do that is we're going to disassemble each side of the suspension. So first, you remove your caliper, hang it and support it. Then your ABS wire right here, it gets clipped into right here. So what you want to do is remove that out, then carefully unplug it from the connector, and then you can leave it in your steering knuckle. Then after you do that, we're gonna unbolt our caliper bracket. Then you can unbolt your upper control arm. You can just take like this dog bone mount off from the top here of the spindle. And then loosen your nut on your half shaft. And you should get new nuts for your axle shafts because they have to be torqued into place. And then just loosen this bolt right here. And then your axle, well, after you push your axle back in, you can swing your whole spindle down and get it out of the way. Then you come back underneath and you carefully pry your axle out away from the differential. And it'll stay here supported for us. This is just fine, but you do want to be mindful of these boots because you don't want to get a tear in your boots. So I would recommend that you pull this whole axle shaft out. And remember to keep your caliper supported, and that is pretty much it. We'll take the other side wheel off and show you what it looks like complete, but now you can see how it's disassembled. So we're just unbolting the upper control arm, the ABS wire, the caliper is removed and supported, and this top rod to like this dog bone that goes up here on our spindle. So let's get the other side off. So this is what your assembly looks like all together. Like I say, you're gonna get this caliper. Well, no, first start with our ABS wire. See, you can get this out of this holder here. Then there's some more little supports. Then you use your trim tool to release that. Take your assurance tab out there, that red thing, push it back so you can unclip your harness. If you have an air supply, I would recommend blowing through here, just get some of that fine dirt and debris out. And once that is out, unbolt your caliper bracket there. That's an 8mm, your brake hose support bracket. That's an 8mm. Your two caliper mounting bolts, those are 15s. Then you will support your caliper after you pull it off. I would get our rotor off next and then loosen our nut here. I believe this was a 32. And then this is an 18. This nut right here. So you could spin this out and hold this 15mm bolt. And no, excuse me, I'm wrong. You hold the 18 nut, then spin your 15mm bolt out, and that'll get this all loose. And then turn this 15mm nut out. Then I would loosen this one, and then all you will then have is I will loosen this one as well. No, excuse me, I pull this 21 all the way out. So this 21 comes all the way out. We're gonna leave it hanging there by this one. And this will disconnect this dog bone, this 15mm bolt. So In essence, right now, to get the suspension apart, you will need a 32. I'd recommend a 15 and a 13 swivel impact sockets, screwdriver, a trim tool, a 21 for here, and an impact, and an 18 wrench and socket if you want to pull that off. So that'll get you squared away to get the suspension out, and also a pry bar so you can pry that axle out. Also, when I take this nut off, before I lower my spindle, I drive this axle back in with our air hammer. You can use a regular hammer and a center punch too. Just be mindful of your threads. Just drive it in so it releases from the hub bearing. And then once you've got this flopped down, once your spindle is flopped down, just like it is on this side, then your axle will be in, you can get it out, and then you go underneath and gently pry your axle out. So that'll get you to this point. So now we have both of our axles out. Now it's time to disassembling the differential. But what I want to make mention to you, see, there's a breather vent up there, and then there is an electrical connection right here. So you want to remove both of those so they don't get damaged, because you need to reuse them on the new differential. And once we get this down, I'll show you our new differential, because surprisingly in my area, a used one of these is not that far off a cost from a reman one from Ford, I believe, or a new one. And you really can't get parts for them. I called the dealer to try to get parts, and they say it's just service as a unit. So we just got a new one from the dealer. So we'll show you that. So what we're gonna do is disconnect this vent right there, then unplug this connector, and then I think, what will we do next? There's only two bolts, well, 4 bolting points. So right here, right there, and right here and right there. So those are the only mounting points after you get your drive shaft loose and your axles out. So this thing is pretty much ready to come out. We will get those unattached. Okay, so these bolts are T55. This nut is an 18. And these are T55 too. So just make sure you got your good T55 so you don't round those off. I would start loosening them by hand with the ratchet and then put a power tool on them. And we got our trans jack here to support it as we come down. So remember, be safe, people. So we have our differential out. This thing isn't really heavy, but I would still recommend you have some help, be safe. And I think you may be able to hear the noise. So, you know, if you get this much noise at a low speed, you can imagine at a high speed what it is. And a quick tip here. So these bolts here, they had some kind of Loctite on it. They were a little bit more difficult to get out, but other than that, it was straightforward. So let me take you up front to show you the new one. So this is our new one. This is the part number here. So this is what it looks like. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is a new unit. I don't think this is reman. You see, we got all our nice covers in there. Let me see if we can lift it up out of here easily. Let's see, does it? So we got it lifted up. You see, we're turning this one and pretty much no noise, as it should be. So you can see how it looks. It's missing some brackets, so we got to transfer those over. So we'll get it brought over and start transferring our brackets. So now we have both our units side by side. It should be pretty obvious which is which. that is bad. And this is good. So we got to transfer these brackets and these brackets to our new unit, and then we'll plop it up in place. I need to double check to see if it has gear oil or not, because sometimes they are shipped full and sometimes new units are. So you want to make mention of that and fill it up with the correct amount of fluid and correct type. So let me get these brackets switched over. So I have actually made a mistake, because I've been telling you all that these are Torx, but they're actually Torx Plus. You can see how they are rounded off and not sharp. And this is what a Torx Plus looks like. Like once I could flip this over and see, get a better look at the bolt, I could see that. So these are Torx Plus. See how they're rounded off? Where a Torx socket will work, but I wouldn't recommend you using it. I would recommend that you use the correct Torx Plus, because that'll give you better engagement and help you torque better without damaging the fastener. So that's why it's important, if you're ever watching a YouTube video on how to do something, watch the entire video all the way through, then fully understand it, so you can see, because different things are discovered as you go along. And another tip, what I'm going to use is my impact driver to break these free, where you set it on off, you strike it with a hammer, and then that will break them free, and then I'll use my impact to spin it out. That's also a lot safer to not round these bolts off. So we got our differential all assembled, we got our brackets on front and rear. So now we're going to put this thing back on the trans jack, put it into place. Remember, these all have blue Loctite on it, so you want to re-Loctite it, torque it down, and torque everything to spec. So let's get this in. So we have our unit in, all our mounting bolts are all tightened down. So remember, they're Loctite on these, they're Loctite on these. It's all blue Loctite. So just remember to put your Loctite on there and torque them down. We have our drive shaft or propeller shaft, however you want to call it, lined up. So we'll get that. So next we will pull these plugs. No, I'm wrong. So we will hook up our axle tube vents. Let us do that now. So we'll move these orange caps off and hook these up. So there are two of them. There's a front and a rear. See that one and that one. So let me pause. So our axle vent tubes are hooked up. Now we'll plug in our wiring connector. That goes right there. So we'll get that plugged in. And surprisingly, it didn't have an insurance tab on it. I'm not sure if someone removed it, but that's the way it came to us. So we got that in. So we're gonna pull these plugs out and put our axles in. But remember, especially if your axles are sitting on the floor like that, wipe them off, make sure there's no debris, because we don't want to put, actually, I am going to spray those off with some brake parts cleaner and then wipe them off before I stick them in our nice new differential, because we don't want to contaminate this unit with the old fluid from the old one. Let me actually show you what it looked like. So this is what our old fluid looked like. It's got plenty of debris in it, metal debris. So you don't want to transfer any of that to your new unit. So remember to clean those ends off and dry them off and then install them. So that's what we'll do. So we have our axles installed. You can see they are fully seated in there. So that is all good. So next what we will do is we will start putting our suspension back together. Just take your time on this and everything will work out fine. You don't have to rush it. If you've gotten this far, you don't want to make a mistake at this point. So just slow down, take your time, And remember, all of these suspension components should be torqued with the weight on the vehicle. So you need to do that. So we'll start reassembly here. So we have our suspension all back together. We do have to put our new axle nuts on and torque those down, but we'll do those later. Be mindful about your dust shield. Make sure you didn't bend this thing out of place, because you don't want to rub it on the rotor once you get it back together and making a noise. We got our ABS wire all plugged in, everything bolted back down. Everything is torqued down. Remember, just take your time and go back over everything. So now what we're going to do is raise it up, hook up our drive shaft, put our exhaust on, and then we will torque those the new nuts down and put our wheels on and torque those down. And this thing is full with fluid, so we will drive it and then bring it back in and check the fluid. So that's the way we're going to do it. So these drive shaft bolts should get some blue Loctite on those as well. So remember that. We have our exhaust bolted back up. Our drive shaft is bolted in. So now all we have to do is put our wheels on. We'll take it for a drive, verify that our noise is gone, which we do know that it's gone. So let's do that. Okay, so let us take this thing for a drive. We got our wheels torqued on, so the noise isn't going already. So this thing is fixed, but we're still gonna drive it. But yeah, it was quite loud, as you heard on the ground there. It was about 5 times louder than that in the car. So yes, this thing is back nice and quiet, as a Lincoln should be. Nice and quiet. So thank you to everyone for following along. Remember, just take your time and all will go well. Remember to comment, like, and subscribe. White One Auto out.